Why so much fear after quitting alcohol? The anxiety sets in. We wonder why. Is it ever going to get better when we quit drinking? The answer is yes, it's going to get better. But let's break it down a little bit and talk about why we get fearful and why we get anxiety when we first quit drinking. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Josh, living life alcohol free. If you're returning, thank you guys so much for being here and subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you all. So, Robert, if you're here, thank you so much for commenting the other day. Robert commented and asked why he gets so much fear or anxiety when he stops drinking alcohol. And my best answer at the time was that for me, anyway, the reason why I got so anxious was the fear of the unknown. That was really what it was for me. But there's more scientific based evidence for the reasons why we get anxious when we stop drinking alcohol. First of all, the alcohol does a number on our neurotransmitters. It sets our brain chemistry up to the fact that we rely on the alcohol to help with the anxiety, and it really does help the anxiety. It releases dopamine, and it gives us that dopamine hit that we need in order to feel better in the moment. But then when we have the hangover and the anxiety, as some of them call it, the alcohol is missing and we have withdrawal symptoms. And when we drink it, we quiet those withdrawal symptoms. We don't feel anxious anymore, and it helps us in the fear and the anxiety. But in the long run, what it really does is create fear and anxiety by some of the things that we do and say while we're drinking, some of the issues that we have when we're not drinking, and ultimately we become reliant on alcohol, which is not sustainable when we're drinking it in massive amounts, similar to how I drank alcohol, which was a binge drinker. So it does that for us, but it also does that to us. So when we quit drinking, now we're faced with the reality of having to cope with life without alcohol. And yeah, that can be scary. I mean, it can create all kinds of fear, all kinds of anxiety. When we don't have that crutch to lean on anymore and we have to actually feel what we're feeling and deal with it and talk about it, it can create all kinds of fear. And then there's the unknown, which is what I thought. I don't know what life's going to be like alcohol free. I know that I ran the course of drinking. I mean, I became a professional drinker. I drank so much over such a long period of time that I knew what I needed. I knew what I needed to function. I knew how much I could drink. I knew what I could drink. I knew that if I drank and mixed certain things together or had certain uh, beverages that I wouldn't feel well. That didn't mean that I still didn't have anxiety, because I did. I had tons of it. I had tons of fear, tons of anxiety. I suffered from panic attacks from the ages of 24 to about ages 34. I still had panic like issues, not attacks, but panic issues like high anxiety, even into my later 30s, but I still kept drinking. I didn't want to try medication. I didn't want to try not drinking for an extended period of time. I was able to get like a week at a time, but I wasn't able to get any longer than that. And it was usually because I was having such bad anxiety, hangover symptoms, that I just swore off alcohol for a few days, and that sometimes it would turn into a week. But after about a week or so, usually I'd go right back to drinking, and I would drink just the same amount, if not more, than I was drinking before, and maybe even more regularly, because I missed it, And that's what we feel like when we're in addiction and we're coping with life with alcohol. we feel like we're going to miss out on alcohol, or we feel like we're going to miss out on situations and events where alcohol's around and everyone's drinking it and we're not going to be part of it. And that can be a scary prospect. But to get back to the point of the video, which is this high anxiety, this fear that sets in when we give up alcohol or at least try to quit for some time, maybe even if it's a short period of time. The first day, let's just break it down day by day. That first day that I didn't drink, I was coming off of a week long bender, and my anxiety was through the roof. It was, my heart rate was over 100. It wasn't going down. It was somewhere around like 120 beats per minute. I was regretting the things that I said and did the night before. I was feeling guilty. I was feeling ashamed about my behavior, and I had to lash out at my family. And I was just at my wit's end with my behavior and with myself. Now, luckily, my family was very forgiving. It didn't, it didn't come easy. It wasn't easy to apologize. It wasn't easy to admit that the alcohol played a huge role in my behavior. It wasn't easy to admit that I was going to have to do something about it. All these things were causing more anxiety. I remember saying to my oldest daughter that I know that I need to not drink, but I don't know that I could get there right away. I might have to wean myself off of alcohol because I've been drinking every day pretty much for the entire first 6 weeks of the pandemic in 2020. And I was at home. I wasn't working. My youngest daughter was uh, in kindergarten at the time, so there was very little homeschooling. But what homeschooling there was led me to anxiety. We were trying to keep everything clean. We were trying to stay healthy. We were trying to wear the masks, when we went to the grocery store or to any stores. We were trying not to touch things. We got the hand sanitizer. We had the rubbing alcohol for our hands and the sanitizer wipes for everything. And all that was just adding on anxiety to already the drinking. And I thought the drinking was helping. And if we really look at it, the drinking is helping us. It helps us while we're in that, in that drinking session. It's just that the fallout from that is 10 times worse, maybe 100 times worse, especially when it comes to the anxiety issues. But day by day, so I was in that frame of mind for about 2 days where I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to drink again. Like, I just felt that bad, full of anxiety. It took 2 days for my heart rate to finally start to go down under 100. I never did go to the doctor. I didn't call. I didn't go to the ER. I didn't do anything like that. But I was just sitting by myself in my room, trying to cope with this anxiety. And it was difficult. In the meantime, I started to read up on being alcohol free. I started to read up on how to control my drinking. I started to read up on, why I was stuck in addiction the way that I was and how I was going to get out of it. And I found a book called This Naked Mind: How to Control Alcohol by Annie Grace. And I read that book from cover to cover in just a couple days. And I started to wonder, is she not drinking? Is are the people on this forum, because I joined the community right afterwards, are the people on here not drinking at all? Is that what it means to control alcohol? Just not drink it at all? And I thought, man, is that really what I want? It wasn't necessarily what I wanted. I wanted to be able to have a drink or two and not drink any more than that and just not crave it. But I got to like 3 days and I wasn't drinking still. And I found a second book called How to Alcohol Explained by William Porter. And that book broke down, like I was talking about, how the alcohol does a number on your neurotransmitters. It basically rewires your brain to a point where your identity is that of a drinker. That is who you are. You're a drinker. You are your addiction, and in order to keep going in that identity, that's what you do. And to break that stigma in our own minds is something that can get us to the other side. If we can really notice that it's changing our mindset, it's changing our brain chemistry, the alcohol is, and we can slowly start to recognize and put, you know, a label on it and call it what it is, which is an addiction. We're able to kind of reform our mind around our problems with alcohol. We can kind of step out of the fact that, look, this isn't all on us. Yes, we were the ones drinking it, but alcohol is an addictive substance. I mean, it really is. And if you have an addictive personality, if you have these kinds of traits, and you have these kinds of issues, and and you become aware of it, now you can actually do something about it. You can start to make a plan for your day and say, like, and that's what I did. I started to say, like, all right, what do I like doing? What do I really enjoy doing that doesn't involve alcohol? Well, walking is a huge thing. And being that it was so quiet on the roads and in the neighborhoods because of the pandemic and no one was really going anywhere, it gave me an opportunity to go out and walk by myself. Sometimes I would take my dog for a walk. Sometimes I would go with one of my kids around the block or whatever. But that was something that I could do multiple times a day, especially when I started to crave alcohol. And that was like the first step, finding things that I liked doing that did not involve alcohol, especially around the times that I would normally turn to alcohol, which was earlier and earlier in the day because I wasn't working. So I was starting to drink around noon. So those cravings for alcohol would set in around lunchtime. So I would have to find something, to preoccupy my mind, but not just, doing things that, I didn't really like find joy in. I needed to do things that I actually enjoy doing. I mean, yes, there are things that, like, if you don't enjoy chores, but they have to be done, I would try to knock those things out earlier in the morning, get that done, and then I could spend my afternoon reading, walking, hiking, uh, doing meditation. I would do these like body scans. I would just YouTube it, look up a different body scan or a different meditative music, and I would just try to work through my feelings and my thoughts during those periods of time. And that really did help with my anxiety. Now, I had the benefit of being on Zoloft. I was on it for a couple years before I quit drinking. So I was still on it when I quit drinking. So that probably helped take the edge off. A lot of times, my doctor would say the alcohol is kind of undoing the benefits of the Zoloft. And although I agreed with that, I continued on drinking anyway, and then increasing the dosage as the time went on. But that probably did help take the edge off right away when I quit drinking. So I didn't have so much anxiety. I was worried that I would have withdrawal symptoms, which I had minimal. I really didn't have, and the reason why I was worried was because I was drinking so much for so long, and the duration of the drinking sessions were so long that half the time of my my day and my week, I was under the influence of alcohol, and then the other half I was hungover. So it was just a repeated cycle of drinking, and I felt like, this has been going on for 6 weeks. Maybe I'm going to have withdrawal symptoms or have really bad feelings when I am not using the alcohol. And like I said, I feel like I kind of lucked out. It was kind of a blessing that I didn't have the withdrawal symptoms. But like I said, the Zoloft probably helped, but it also helped that when I joined the community on This Naked Mind, I had somewhere to have an outlet for my feelings and my thoughts. So I would comment on people's posts, but then I would also make posts of my own. I would have a conversation with my wife if I was having an urge to drink. I would tell her usually that, you know, I was craving alcohol, but the reason why I was craving the alcohol was because I was feeling guilty about some of the things that I said while I was drinking the week before or a few days before. And I was feeling guilty about, the relationships that I might have, you know, ruined because of my drinking. And all those anxieties were still there, but I wasn't using alcohol to cope with them anymore. So yeah, it's kind of like it's raw and it's real, and the emotions are important to feel and to walk through. And it always is going to help to walk through it with somebody, whether that's a therapist or a spouse, a group online or a group in person, or whoever. I had multiple sources. This time, when I finally quit, I kind of knew that I was going to need multiple sources. I kind of knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it on my own. I knew that AA didn't work, so I wasn't even going to bother with AA. But I was blessed enough to find that group and join that group and be on there all day, every day, posting and reading and learning about other people's journeys, and seeing that there was so many more people that have this in common, and not ever really realizing that, because it always feels like we're the only ones, or our situation is unique. And I feel like that kind of does keep us in addiction when we think that way, because there are a lot of, and maybe not everybody has the same story, but when it all comes down to it, we're all trying to live life, and we're trying to continue drinking, and now we're trying to live life without drinking. And so we have that basic commonality, and it really helps to have that camaraderie and that place that you can feel safe, because not everybody in our life is going to understand what we're going through, but there are people, and it's important to find that, and that will quiet those voices. So if we can kind of recognize that, yes, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So that would be my best answer, Robert. If we can acknowledge that, yes, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know why we're having these anxious feelings, but we know that we need to get to the root causes of that, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take a process. I mean, for me, I drank for 27 years. So I knew, I mean, I didn't want to believe it, but I knew that it was going to take some years maybe to hash all this out. It wasn't going to happen in a few days or a week or a month. Like, it was going to take 6 months, a year, or more to get to the root causes of my addiction and why I leaned on alcohol so much in my life to cope. And I was going to talk about it in a different video, but since I'm talking about it now, I might as well bring it up. One of the major things that I had going on in my life was the fact that my face would turn red when I would um, feel any kind of anxiety. Um, and sometimes it would be red, even if I wasn't anxious, it would just be red. And it might be red right now. Uh, Looking at my screen, it looks a little bit, but I want to point this out. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but it is important to acknowledge it because my self reflective issues were something that kept me in addiction, and my red face makes it obvious that I'm anxious or I'm tired or I'm having some kind of issue, right? And maybe your issue isn't the red face. Maybe your issue is something else that's not noticeable to everybody else. But I can guarantee that what I've learned over these 5+ years of being alcohol free is that we all have issues. All of us, every single one of us. So although my red face might be obvious to the outside world, your issue might not be obvious to other people, but you know that it's an issue. So it's important to you to work on that, to work through that. And even though that may never change, because I can't change the color of my skin, um, it doesn't matter, because the fact of the matter is that I've accepted that that's the way that it is. And I think that if you can and find a way to hone in on the things that are holding you back as far as your own self reflection, the better off you're going to be. Like, you don't have to hang on to that. Now, some things can be changed, you know, but there's other things that cannot be changed. And growing to accept that about yourself and know your limitations, and recognize that you are using alcohol to numb that, to help that pain, is a step. And yeah, it can be scary to think about living a life where you're not using alcohol to cope with those drawbacks. You guys all know that I've grown in my faith over these years. You guys all know that I'm looking at this like, hey, we're all imperfect. We all have things. Even if we're continuing to drink, that doesn't make us a bad person. Um, but it does make us stuck. It does make us make us continue to do and say and do the same patterns that we have been doing all these years. And changing that pattern is scary. Change is scary. So it helps me. And getting back to like the red face issue, it helps me to know that we all fall short of the glory of God. Like, we all fall short in one way, or in some cases, many ways. uh, and it helps me to know that everyone struggles with something. I'm not the only one, and I don't have to be ashamed to open up about that. I don't have to be ashamed to share how I feel about something. I don't have to be scared to, be vulnerable. I don't have to be scared um, because everyone has something. And yeah, there's certain people in our lives that are easier to talk to than others. There's some people that we trust, some people we don't trust. But as time goes on and we start to live alcohol free, and we start to work on ourselves and work on those anxieties and those fears, because the fear is the stealer of joy. fear steals joy, and we all deserve to have joy. And you do, and you do, and you do. We all deserve it. We are all here. Uh, and I used to think, like, I feel like every day is torture. Like, I feel like in some aspects, I felt like I deserved what I got, the punishments, all the the bad stuff that happened to me, all the ways that I beat myself up and felt bad for myself. I felt like I deserved it, and that just that is not a healthy way of thinking. And if that's you, just take solace in the fact that there is hope for you. There's a way out, and it's not all the same for everybody, but the basic template is lean on somebody, lean on a group, lean on people that you can trust, and that comes in time. I didn't always want to share my vulnerabilities with my wife, uh, but I knew at the beginning of getting sober that I was going to have to trust that um, that she had my best interests at heart, which I always did. But at the same time, I always kind of felt like reluctant to share those things because she might judge me, or she might be critical of me, or maybe look down on me. And I think that's one of those things. It's fear. It's fear. That's fear talking. And yes, maybe some of us do have spouses that are like that, and that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. But I mean, and if you're questioning your marriage or questioning anything that's going on in your life, uh, I would urge you to be alcohol free for like maybe like 6 months before you make any decisions on anything like that, whether ending it or whatever. But and that would be one of the things that I would talk to with my therapist. Like, I don't really know, like, myself, and I don't really know what's going on with my marriage. Like, I was always angry and irritable and just always upset and angry and untrusting. And he just said, give this 6 months. Don't make any choices. Don't make any decisions on anything in your life uh, until you're like 6 months. And the reason why 6 months is because it takes time to get to the root causes of why you're anxious. A lot of times when we're in addiction, we blame everyone for everything, and it can't be further from the truth. It's not necessarily anyone else's fault. Yeah, sometimes it is their fault, right? But other times we're just casting blame and resentment on other people, and it's not their problem. It's our problem. And the quicker we can own up to that, the better off we're going to be. So I think that's really what I wanted to say about fear, especially when we stop drinking, and some of the things that we have to work through. Not easy, not fun. Uh, I kind of went into this with an open mind. Like, 27 years of drinking, I knew that I didn't really want to drink anymore. But that still doesn't mean that it was going to be easy. And I knew that there were things that I swept under the rug that I was going to have to address in order to not feel like I needed alcohol to cope anymore. And yeah, I worked a lot of those things out in the first 6 months, but I mean, that's I didn't stop growing after that. Every year has been new and more growth. I ultimately, was able to come to terms with my relationships, with my wife, with my kids, with everybody in my life. I was able to start to form better boundaries with people, and you know, stick up for myself more, have better self esteem, have uh, just more hope. You know what I mean? More faith. I ultimately started growing more in my faith as time went on in the years 2 and 3 and beyond of being alcohol free. But that's different for everybody. That's a personal journey for you. It's a spirituality. It's a faith journey. That was something that was important for me to explore. And being alcohol free and being in recovery for that long, I was in a place where I was able to do that with my whole heart, without anxiety, without skepticism. Of course, a little bit of skepticism. Let's be honest. uh, that I don't just grow out of that because I don't drink. So, but all that comes in time. But yeah, I would just say, uh, lean on the people in your life. Lean on sober groups and us. I've got a sobriety group on Facebook. Please come join. It's a private group. If you don't feel like sharing on here, you can share on there. That's more private. I did that intentionally to kind of supplement this channel, which is public, so that we can have a private place we can post stuff and talk about it. But that's what I got for you guys today. I'm glad that you guys are here. Please like and subscribe if you're new. Please, if you're subscribed, consider becoming a member or giving a super thanks, contributing to the channel in monetary ways, any way that you feel necessary. If not, I'm going to still continue to make this content that I love making for you guys. So, but take solace in the fact that you're here, you're doing something about it. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a great, sober day.